Good morning and welcome to this webinar today, brought to us by IFA and Initor Global on how UK accountants can use outsourcing to transform service delivery. This is one of many webinar series that have been put together by Capium and Initor. I think this may be our 6th or 7th we've done so far. And this is for mainly our IFA audience and obviously customers for both companies. I'm delighted to be joined today by Robert, who will be doing the main presentation. Good morning, Robert. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Good morning, everyone. And good morning to your dog as well, who seems to be enjoying things so far.
Yeah, so it's something, a good bit of background noise. I think conveniently someone's trying to deliver something at my house. But hopefully he'll quiet down.
Yeah.
or not. But all fun and games on live webinars.
Of course, yeah.
But look, thank you everyone for joining us today. On post digital accountancy show. So I hope really that we've got some really good content for you. Okay, just to give you a quick run through the house rules. That please feel free to put in the comment box any questions that you might have, any observations, any concerns, or any topics that you would like either us to address. We'll try and pause at the end of each slide to kind of address any of those concerns. Okay. This webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with all attendees after the webinar as well. But I think just moving on to this topic, I think there's many reasons why business might consider outsourcing to transform their accounting functions. Just some of the things that jump to my mind is the cost savings, the access to expertise, the ability to scale up quickly, thinking about growing your business and how you can also improve efficiency as well, and maybe even give you a bit more time to focus on additional business strategy like company secretarial services or other services like payroll, which traditionally you just didn't think were profitable for you. So on this note, I'm going to hand over to Robert, who really is going to delve into how outsourcing can transform your service delivery and your business.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Good morning again, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, and a special welcome to members of the Institute of Financial Accountants. We've been working with the IFA for over a year now. It's a very productive relationship, so a really warm welcome to all of you. As Nick says, I'm Robert Grant. I'm the Head of Customer Experience at Initor Global. We provide outsourced accounting services to over 100 UK accounting practices and businesses. If you want to hear a bit more about us in detail, we're actually at Accountex next month. You can find us at stand 1265 on both days, and I'll be presenting on the Disruptive stage on the first day, 15th of May. So it'll be great to see anyone who wants to swing by and discuss any sort of outsourcing questions that they may have. That said, the subject matter of today's webinar is transformation or change management. Now, the backdrop to this is that accountants, any firm of any size, are facing unprecedented disruption and change at the moment. Not least the challenges of increased customer expectations, the need to recruit and retain talent, and the speed of technological change and the accompanying investment that needs to support that. There are also increasing demands from regulators and more changes in the pipeline from things like making tax digital for income tax self-assessment, and also the drive for increased quality from regulators like the FRC. So in this webinar, we're going to consider how outsourcing work to an offshore provider can help transform your service delivery for the better and help you deliver towards your transformation objectives. So today's webinar, I'm going to set a little bit of context for the day in terms of how outsourcing is working at the moment, really where we are now with outsourcing in terms of the types of services that are being sent offshore to other suppliers. And then I want to dig in a bit more detail about the transformational approach to outsourcing and how that can be supportive of a more holistic, longer-term view of an outsourcing relationship, the importance of stakeholder engagement, both internal and external, how outsourcing can transform practice management from performance management right through to final delivery, and how that can provide a catalyst for growth, productivity, and sustainability. I'll also look to the future and how outsourcing can fit with any size of practice, and just give you a handful of key takeaways based on today's webinar. So we're going to move into an audience poll. Nick, if you'd like to introduce this, please.
Brilliant. Yeah, I will do. So the first kind of the poll is please select one of the following options. 1, I currently outsource work to an offshore supplier. 2, I am planning to outsource work over the next 12 months. Or 3, I have no plans to outsource at all. So that should be open now. Oh, yep, and it's polling now. Meanwhile, while that poll is ongoing, I think outsourcing to transform the delivery of accountancy services is getting more and more prevalent, Robert, wouldn't you say? It seems to be outsourcing has picked up as a bit of a trend for 2024.
Yeah, I think outsourcing is here to stay. There's no doubt about that. And previous webinars we've covered how the outsourcing of services can be supportive of any size of practice, and indeed smaller practices can use it as a lever to offer more services and as a key driver of growth going forwards. So yes, certainly outsourcing is becoming more embedded into the operations of many accountants, from the smallest sole practitioner right through to the larger firms.
Yeah, I think technology has made it, cloud-based technology, online communication tools has really made it more accessible than ever. Okay, so the question is at the moment, what is your current kind of outsourcing options? And 13% say they currently outsource work to an offshore supplier. Now 13% say I'm looking to outsource over the next 12 months. And 11 say that then they're not thinking about outsourcing at the moment in time. So I think really this is a good opportunity for those who aren't thinking about it to understand the real benefits that outsourcing can bring to your practice and help you meet your goals and transform your business objectives.
Excellent. So quite an even spread. So that's good. But hopefully I'll give some of the people answering number 2 and number 3 something to think about over the course of my presentation. Okay, so we'll move on the sort of context for today's presentation. Change management or transformation is on the priority list for most accountants. Those of you putting together future plans for the next 2 or 3 years, I'm sure are looking at different ways you can invest in technology and get the most out of that. However, despite that investment in new technologies and automation, options for service delivery are often overlooked. Now, based on discussion with clients and potential clients, I think there may be a little bit of risk aversion still among accountants about outsourcing work to an offshore supplier and how they feel about that and the impact on clients. So I think that's a definite part of the backdrop to this presentation today. And of course, in terms of transformation itself, clients are often driving the need to change the way you deliver service, and they should be at the centre of future planning. Clients now have very high expectations about real-time reporting and rapid response times. So you can actually use outsourcing as a positive to deliver on some of those client priorities as well. And of course, people remain at the centre of most forward investment plans, sort of post-pandemic and the economic recovery. There's a very hot recruitment market for accountants and other finance professionals, as I'm sure you are all experiencing. Individuals have very clear ideas about their career aspirations and how they would like to work, whether that be remotely or a sort of hybrid involving some time in the office and some time away. So any sort of forward investment plans must have a strong people element to them. And outsourcing can help free up some of that capacity to deliver on people priorities. And I mentioned at the top of the introduction the sort of changing emphasis of regulators and the need to ensure that you're fully compliant with any of the changes advocated by government through MTD for ITSA and also through the quality of work that the FRC is driving today. So really the overall aim is to help you, accountants, deliver better services through outsourcing work to an offshore supplier. So where are we now with outsourcing? Tends to be, outsourcing recurring compliance-based work. That's usually sort of payroll, monthly bookkeeping, year-end accounts work. So very safe areas of work are being outsourced at the moment. It's seen very much as a short-term solution to address time pressures and any capacity problems that you may have in a practice, whether that be staff leaving at short notice or growth plans that you just don't have the capacity to deliver on. The client communications typically are undertaken by the onshore accountants. So very little by way of client interaction happens at the moment involving offshore accountants. And I'll talk about how we could probably address that in a much more proactive way. I've also seen through my own personal experience of outsourcing work, there tends to be a very narrow approach to engaging and managing the outsourced relationship. In my experience, it tended to be focused around the accountancy part of the business and other people who had sort of relevant input to a decision to appoint an outsourced supplier, such as system engineers, sales and marketing departments, client relationship managers, that sort of thing. They tended to be at the margins of any decision to engage an outsourced supplier. So we'll talk about how we can address those sorts of barriers to outsourcing. And also what I've seen over the years was, very little effort to integrate an outsourced supplier into the practice business. So they tended not to be involved in sort of team meetings. Performance management seemed to be a little bit variable in terms of how the relationship with the outsourced supplier was managed. The quality of work often wasn't compared to sort of in-house efforts, and opportunities for learning were really overlooked most of the time. And of course, investment of new ways of working tended to be variable as well. And that comes back to the expectations of people who may want to work remotely and who may want to work in a more hybrid way with only sort of certain days working in an office. I think taking all that together, there were certainly, in my experience, some missed opportunities to nurture and take forward relationships with the outsourced supplier to make it as effective as possible.
And I think just to add on that, Robert, the whole outsourcing industry is maturing so much, especially so in the last, 3 to 5 years. And I think, within the next 3 to 5 years, I think you'll see virtual, staff members placed within accountancy firms who are treated every bit part of that firm and have the same kind of client relations that you as a practice owner will have. So I know you're right. The trend is just it's constant improving in communications and delivery of work. I mean, that does take a bit of time to refine, right?
I think it does, and it's moving away from the sort of safety zone that accountants, that they feel comfortable just outsourcing, very straightforward, recurring pieces of work. Now it's more about looking at how an outsourced supplier can support your practice growth and help you transform service delivery. And that's really going to be the sort of meat of the presentation going forwards. So the areas I want to explore in a bit more detail are how outsourcing can provide a more holistic and longer term view. So it doesn't need to be confined to recurring or transactional areas or just to clear a backlog or peak of work. It can be integrated with future service plans for growth and profitability. Stakeholder engagement from the internal stakeholder to external stakeholders like clients. They're really a really important part of the transformational approach. Integrating all of that with practice management, performance management and reporting. And also the important part of this is cultural integration. I've had many questions over when I talk to potential clients and say, well, we have a certain culture, ways of working. How can you assure us that the outsourced supplier will sort of integrate with that in an effective way? And I obviously highlight that there are opportunities for organisational learning on both sides that can help with that. It can provide a catalyst for growth and profitability, whether that be an objective for increasing client numbers, providing more services, or leveraging additional services from your existing client base as well. And I think once you integrate outsourcing effectively into your forward planning, you can becoming much more forward-looking, reactive, and responsive to your client needs. So if we start off with the more holistic, longer-term view, I'll look at this from a couple of perspectives. First of all, the client experience perspective, and also the service delivery part as well. So if you think about your initial contact with a client, that nowadays is very often through your website, or it's app-based, or maybe it's even through ChatGPT or using a bot and things like that. But there are opportunities to actually get your outsourcing supplier engaged in that sort of conversation with a client, because it is all done remotely. And if you get the right outsourced suppliers, they're well able to answer any questions or sort of queries from a potential client to really persuade them of the benefits of coming to work with your practice. Once you get the client in the door, the onboarding part is extremely resource intensive. There are many admin tasks that need to be completed quickly and effectively, from filing information with HMRC, setting up information with Companies House, as basic as obtaining prior year accounts, professional clearance letters, finding out where your new client is with bookkeeping and things like that. Those are all parts of the initial relationship that an outsourced supplier is well able to deliver. And of course, relationship building is key to the success of any client relationship. And it really is the acid test to make sure that your client is satisfied with the services you provide and how they are delivered. So if you want to improve your turnaround times, if you want to improve your response rates, if you want to ensure that the quality of work is consistent, then using an outsourced supplier can help build those relationships quickly and effectively. And of course, as a future client needs, capacity is a real problem for many practices at the moment, and understanding the client's needs today and also looking ahead to the future can be extremely resource intensive. What you can do is get your outsourced supplier to provide continuous feedback as work is delivered on what those future needs may be. For instance, a good example is your client may need tax advice at the end of a financial year. They may be considering a major purchase, things like that. So the outsourced supplier can provide that continuous feedback to allow you to respond much more proactively to your client needs. And of course, looking towards the end of a relationship, the natural life of a client can be 3 or 4 years, depending on their performance. They may grow too big for your practice, or they may cease trading altogether. Again, admin heavy on disengaging a client. Disengagement letters need to be prepared. Records need to be produced and sent to the client. Or if they have a new accountant, there may need to be a professional clearance letter. So you can involve your outsourced supplier in all of those admin tasks that help you disengage a client as smoothly as possible and with the minimum of fuss and without draining your resources too much.
Robert, just one quick question that jumped into my head. So see, in maybe throughout the year, there's maybe 3 or 4 times that you as an accountant might have bottlenecks. Are you able to draw down on outsourcing services maybe just before the self-assessment season, or end of the month payroll or year end? Are you able to have that kind of ad hoc relationship in order just to kind of level out that bottleneck? And then instead of saying no to clients who maybe turn up at the last minute, you could say yes, because actually you've got your tap that you could turn on to deal with moments where your sink is overflowing.
Yeah. I think, even looking back at the most recent self-assessment tax return season, talking to clients over the last few weeks, they still found it quite a harrowing process, and it sort of disrupted their holiday plans over Christmas and New Year. So yes, it's important to realise that you can draw down that resource whenever you need it. Outsourced suppliers, they tend to have quite a high number of staff available at those peak times, so you can draw it down on an ad hoc basis whenever you need it. But what I'm advocating today is that, with a bit more sort of forward planning and engaging your outsourced supplier, throughout the client journey and throughout the accounting period, you can head off some of those sort of peaks in work or backlogs or log jams that you refer to, Nick. Okay, so if we think about service delivery, I've mentioned on a number of occasions that shifting the mindset away from recurring or transactional services to a more reactive offering really will help you transform the way your services are delivered. The outsourced supplier can help with your client's real-time reporting requirements. They can, dip into whichever software you're using, produce real-time reports, real-time management information. So it's not just the recurring transactions they'll be completing for you. They can actually be a bit more reactive in the things that they do for your clients. They can also spot changing trends and changing needs among your client base. Clients may be moving towards, different ways of financing their business. Some may be going into areas that are outside of your comfort zone, like sort of cryptocurrency transactions, or entering into, a number of relationships themselves with overseas clients that require a slightly different expertise to deliver from your side. For smaller practices, using an outsourced supplier certainly widens the range of services that you can offer. Many sole practitioners may struggle to offer payroll services, for instance. They may struggle to offer sort of management information services as well. So drawing down that sort of expertise can transform the way that you provide the services that your clients need. And I think it's also helpful to recognise the importance of software as a service suppliers in the market at the moment. There are many new entrants to this market providing software only, where clients are basically maintaining their own accounting records, completing their own bookkeeping, and completing their own monthly reconciliations. So they may only need the services of an accountant at key points in the accounting period, whether that be at the end of a VAT quarter, whether it be producing the year-end accounts. So it's important that you have access to capacity to deliver on that side of your business if that's something that you're pursuing. So those severe peaks in workload can be smooth, and you can draw down resources whenever you need them. So it's just recognising that's a side of the industry that has been growing exponentially over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and look, I think you're talking about future trends as well, Robert. With MTD ITSA on the horizon, you might have a sudden, it might build up, but a sudden huge requirement for bookkeeping services. With the requirement to have digital records for all transactions that your clients are going to be making, suddenly there might be huge pressure on you as an individual, as your business, to suddenly do bookkeeping work. Yeah. And I think just having those opportunities to outsource without having to hire a bookkeeper and keeping it quite cost effective and maybe drawing down as and when you need it, I think is just the flexibility that we all need in the 21st century, really.
Yeah, I think so. And practices are now planning heavily for MTD for it. So I know it's been kicked down the road a couple of times. But I think the April 2026 introduction is going to happen, and practices are already struggling to get their clients onto digital record keeping. So it really does sort of emphasize the need to get those parts of the business fit for purpose when these new regulations finally arrive. So I talked about stakeholder engagement. So thinking about the client perspective and how they may view outsourcing, Most clients are completely comfortable with outsourcing, and they will see immediate benefits in terms of improved turnaround times, better response times, and a more consistent quality of work. So including your clients, at the centre of your future plans for transformation and service delivery, clearly is a given that most accountants do understand. But then there's the internal stakeholder part of the equation, and that's people commissioning the outsourced service. I mentioned earlier that in my experience, it tended to be concentrated among accountants or maybe one or two individuals. That should change, certainly in larger practices. Getting the perspective of non-accountants is always helpful and can help with that future relationship management of the outsourced provider. And of course, people will be at the centre of any discussions around new ways of delivering services, and they are a key stakeholder in anything that an accounting practice does. So individuals need to see the benefit of outsourcing work to them. That may be they have more time to spend with clients, they have more time to develop skills and delivering more complex services, and they can see it as an investment in them in terms of their continuing professional development and also their future career aspirations. So again, engaging people, allaying any concerns they may have in any decision to appoint an outsourced provider is pretty essential.
Robert, I also suppose that if you are providing a new service which you have very little experience in, you could then draw down on the outsourcer's experience in order to kind of build out that service and what that service offering should look like, right?
Exactly. That's part of the organisational learning I mentioned on a couple of occasions. So it is a two-way sort of exchange of information. Outsourcers will be processing literally thousands of payrolls every year for a whole diverse portfolio of clients that they have. So you can learn from your outsourced provider about how you can deliver those services most effectively, how you can update systems and processes to help you deliver those new services, and also be confident that the outsourced provider has the skills and the expertise to deliver that you may not have within your business at the moment. Okay, then if we move into the sort of the transforming of practice management, I've mentioned organisational culture. The outsourced supplier will have flexible options that will fit in with your needs, so you can commission services on an ad hoc basis using half-time equivalent or full-time equivalent resources. But of course, you need to integrate those new services with the technology that you have. So smaller practices especially will find that the investment in technology can allow them to deliver services in new ways using different resources that the outsourced supplier can make available. In terms of performance management, you may need to look at the metrics you use to track progress of work, update those to have the outsourced supplier perspective. You may need a more diverse portfolio of performance indicators that allows you to compare in-house performance with the outsourced supplier performance. And of course, the continuous improvement in services should be at the centre of setting those performance targets. There needs to be a full integration of management information between, the hard indicators like number of days to turn around a set of accounts, to the more qualitative indicators or KPIs around customer satisfaction and customer experience. Many practices now use sort of social media to measure how clients are feeling about the quality of work that's produced. Maybe many will use net promoter scores as well, seeking feedback actively from clients as well. So you can see how the outsourced supplier measures up against the targets that you've set, and also how they measure up against your in-house offering as well. And of course, there needs to be some investment in systems and processes. The more agile you are as a practice, the more you can maximise efficiencies. And that really will underpin performance improvement, and it will underpin customer satisfaction as well. So I think it's recognising there needs to be some upfront investment to make sure that your systems and processes are fit for purpose and they can handle sort of the higher volume of work that you will be putting through an outsourced supplier. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how outsourcing can help with your growth, profitability and sustainability plans. Your growth objectives may well be around increasing client numbers and having an outsourced supplier from the outset involved with the onboarding of clients and making the best possible first impressions can help support that specific growth objective. You can widen your service offering as well by using an outsourced supplier to offer those services that you may not have felt you had the confidence or the capacity to provide over the previous years. Of course, every practice is driving profits as hard as they can, and using an outsourced supplier inevitably reduces input costs. It leads to more efficient workflows because of the investment in systems and processes that I mentioned, and it allows you to focus your attention on those higher margin services that maybe you'd never gotten around to providing before. Advisory services, more sort of insightful data analysis for your clients, and looking ahead to the sort of specialist services that they may need as they grow and thrive themselves. And sustainability, that's in terms of client retention, making sure your customer experience is always where you want it to be and that the feedback from your clients is as high as it possibly can be. You want to reduce the churn of clients as far as possible, notwithstanding the portability of client information nowadays, but clearly that's a major indicator for many practices going forwards. And of course, the more value you can add to your client relationship, the better that relationship will be sustained and nurtured going forwards. So, looking to the future, I think taking all of those sort of comments together, outsourced suppliers can provide a much wider range of services and support for your accountants. So you can be confident in your service offering to clients, and you may wish to offer services that you may not have thought of and you could offer in the past. It's important to think about transformation as re-engineering the more traditional ways of outsourcing work. If you just carry on just outsourcing, your payroll, your bookkeeping, your year-end accounts, that won't actually deliver transformation. You need to think about how you involve outsourced suppliers throughout your client journey and throughout your sort of client growth as well. Decision making on what to outsource and when needs to be data driven, and that includes the qualitative indicators that I mentioned. If you're seeing really high client satisfaction ratings from your clients around the work that's produced by your outsourced accountants, look to outsource more because they can clearly handle what your clients need. Outsourcing work at all times provides a more stable cost base, and the service delivery model is more sustainable as well. So that means you can predict your future revenue and your future profits more accurately and over a longer term as well. So that comes back to the point I made about including the outsourcing of services in your future plans for growth and profitability. And of course, outsourcing can support and complement any agile business model. Involve the outsourced supplier in your sort of organisational culture, learn from your outsourced supplier as well, and make sure that if you are considering new ways of providing services, outsourcing is part of that decision-making process. So I'm going to hand back to you, Nick, to see if there get some responses for the second part of our audience poll. Thanks, Nick.
Sure, no problem. So the second poll we have here is please select one of the following. Outsourcing work can help my practice deliver transformation. Outsourcing work won't impact any transformation plans I have. My practice isn't implementing any significant transformation plans at the moment. So these should be all on screen now, and please feel free to answer that away. Let's see if I can find it. So while that poll is going on, Robert, I just want to ask a question, a couple of questions really. If I'm an accountant thinking about outsourcing, but I have some concerns just because of some of the perceptions in the marketplace. So the first one is, how do you deal with kind of confidentiality concerns like sharing financial data and client data?
Yeah, most outsourced suppliers, certainly Initor Global, we are GDPR compliant. We're ISO 27001 accredited as well. So data handling is probably our number one priority, and ensuring data security. Almost all of our clients operate in the cloud, so accountants are based offshore, can't download any information at all about your clients. So it's all done either on your services, on your servers, or it's the work's completed in the cloud as well. Also have physical safeguards to protect client data. For instance, no mobile technology is allowed in the offices where accountants are working. So that provides a physical safeguard as well. Just to say that, an outsourced accountant is like any other accountant. They understand the importance of data security and handling that data properly.
Brilliant. And then, so you've managed to get the data over to me securely. How do you deal with kind of quality control? What kind of safeguards put in place for that?
Yeah, all work that's produced has what we call a second pair of eyes. So the work will always be reviewed by a more senior accountant, and it needs to meet internal quality arrangements before any work is sent back to an individual client. We understand the pressure to turn around work quickly. But notwithstanding that, it's important that we always have that two-stage process for producing work and then reviewing it and then finally transmitting it back to the client.
And my last question is, which is key to any successful business, is communication. How does Initor kind of deal with communication with, I suppose, the other business partners and the clients?
Yeah. Every client of ours has a named relationship manager. So that will be a senior person in the organisation, and they can contact them at any time with queries about the work and how it's progressing. If they need to contact accountants directly, maybe to progress a piece of work, they can do that as well over email. And we have monthly Teams calls with clients if they need that, or more regularly if they want it, just to talk about how work is progressing and also what's in the pipeline, so that we can feed back thoughts about how the work that we've been sent is shaping up, and also any future needs that the clients may have.
Brilliant, Robert. Thank you. So now we can go back to the poll. It's actually split right now. Outsourcing work can help my practice deliver transformation. That's got about 53% of the vote. And my practice isn't implementing any significant transformation plans at the moment. So maybe people are just looking for kind of future notes if they consider it in the future.
I think that's a fair spread. Of course, transformation plans are usually driven by the pace of investment, the timing of investment. But my message from today is that when you're doing that sort of transformation planning, think about outsourcing as an option to change the way you deliver services, and see it as a lever to provide more services to your clients that they may need in the future.
Brilliant, Robert. Thank you.
Okay, so I promise some takeaways from today's presentation. I think you gather from my comments that some accountants have often struggled with transformation, but now they are embracing digitization and technological change at a really fast pace. The next step is using that investment to transform service delivery and a better client experience. The right outsource partner will enhance transformation and help deliver better outcomes for your customers and for service delivery. It can also help, with your internal arrangements to allay any concerns that your your accountants may have about how they're going to cope with the growth in business going forwards. And accountants are adopting a more agile approach to transformation nowadays, and they can use outsourcing to support that business model. So we're seeing a more project-based approach to some of the work that an accountant completes nowadays. And of course, effective stakeholder engagement and collaboration across the business about the long-term benefits of outsourcing is essential to successful implementation. So it's not just about addressing that peak of work. It's not just about clearing a backlog. It's about embedding outsourcing in the way that you do business and the way that you deliver services. So that's my takeaways from today's presentation. Any IFA members who are with us today, just a reminder that you have a free, no obligation trial of our services, up to 10 hours of any bookkeeping, year-end accounts, preparation or payroll work. You'll have a 15% discount in your first year of contract. So that's well worth having if you want to discuss that with us. You can commission our services on an ad hoc basis. That's an hourly rate. Half-time equivalent or full-time equivalent basis. And that's where the offshore accountant will really work under your direction as part of your team. And you will have a named relationship manager as your key point of contact to raise any issues with at any time. So a final thank you from me. So if you want to arrange a discussion, those are my contact details. You can visit our website, or even phone us if you feel like that's the best way to get in touch with us. Always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me. And of course, as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, we will be at Accountex, stand 1265. So please do swing by, have a chat with some of our guys who will be on the exhibit stand, and it'd be great to see you if you're attending Accountex next month. Thank you. Over to you, Nick.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. And just while I wrap up, do you want to maybe put your contact details or these contact details in the chat so people could just copy them and maybe follow up on them later? But no, look, I think there's definitely a few good kind of first steps that you can take, with the free trial, the 15% free off your first year. Definitely some good opportunities there to kind of begin your journey with outsourcing. Look, I just want to thank you, Robert, for your time. And that was very insightful. And I hope it got some people thinking about, their next 12 months and how they can deliver that service. But I've been Nicholas Cheney. I'm a director for product and growth at Capium. And Capium is a fully cloud-based accountancy software solution with no limit on user licenses. So if you are thinking about outsourcing, you've got the perfect tool to enable that with us. So look, thank you everyone for joining and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm sure Robert will be doing something like this soon again.
Yeah, look forward to it, Nick. So thanks everyone for attending. It's been a pleasure. Hope to see you at Accountex. Look forward to meeting you face to face.
Brilliant. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye now.